I refused to sit in the car with my friend who went for glasses of wine. Now everyone's upset. Advice needed. Hey, I feel so alone in this and maybe I am overreacting, but this is the situation. Me, my BF and a lot of our friends were out for dinner. The friend who was driving had 4 glasses of wine. Approximately around 5 liters in total. I thought someone else was going to drive instead of him because he had the most alcohol. When we were going to the car, he jumped in the front seat to drive. I talked to my boyfriend outside of the car and told him that I was not going with and that it was totally fine for me to walk, because it was only about 2 to 3 kilometers, around 2 miles. He got really upset and said that his friend wouldn't drive if he didn't feel like it. I stood my ground and walked. My boyfriend came after and we had a little bit of a discussion. He thinks that his friend is old enough to know his limit, while I on the other hand wouldn't trust anyone with 3-4 glasses of wine in their system, no matter who it is. Info: we have different cultures. I am Norwegian, very strict with rules and laws, and they are South European. I studied science and I know how the reaction time changes with alcohol, even though you don't feel it yourself. I also have a history of parents that had been very irresponsible with alcohol even as parents. I am 20 years old and my BF and our friends are like 30 to 35, so that might affect the situation. My BF is still upset with me, but I am just proud that I dared to do what I felt was right, not support that stuff. Help. Stories number 2. Broke up with my boyfriend because he hid from me that he wanted kids. I don't. I to 5F have been dating 27 meters for 3 years. When we first started dating, I told him within 4 to 5 years I would like to be married. I said I didn't want to have kids and he agreed. He said he didn't want the responsibility and I agreed. 2 weeks ago I brought up the conversation of getting engaged and I'm fine with a long engagement. 2 years of being engaged is not bad, because we're both financially stable and we want a pretty big wedding. He said he was hesitant to propose because I didn't want kids and he does now. I asked him how long did he think he wanted kids. He said for about a year or so, and I asked him was it a deal breaker and he said it was. So I told him that's okay and I understand. He must have thought I meant he'll have kids with him. And he said great, so I say within 2 years we get married and then we can talk about having a child. And I said no, I don't want kids at all, and he goes, you said it was okay. I said, yeah, it's okay, you changed your mind, we just don't align with what we want for our future or relationship. I told him that I would give him until next month to figure something out. He got so upset and told me I can't just make him get out, and I told him that I could because this is my apartment. And I am giving him time to figure something out. We were planning on buying a house together once we got engaged. He got really irate and started calling me all types of names like selfish. I told him he was selfish to know that he wanted to have kids. After I said it multiple times throughout our relationship, I didn't want kids and made it very clear. And he's selfish for holding on to it for a year and not tell me he was having second thoughts. He said I was punishing him for wanting to have kids. I told him it was great that he wanted kids and I think he'd make a great dad, but you can't have a kid with someone who doesn't want kids, so it's silly to want to stay together when we differing views. He said I could change my mind in the future or we can go to therapy for what I'm going through, because it's natural for a woman to want to have kids. I ended the conversation and told him I don't want to be with him anymore. It got around to our families and friends that we broke up, and it sort of split by saying I already had 3 years in it, I could have adopted. I told them I didn't want to be pregnant or adopt. I don't want kids, period. I of course got those, you clock is ticking. And if you don't do it now blah blah blah, or the it's natural to want to have kids and be a mother. I told them not for me. Hayes tried to talk to me a few times saying he could live without kids, but just as long as he had me and him, like I don't trust it. I've heard one too many stories about tampering with birth control pills and condoms, and I just won't take that risk. Stories number 3. AITA for ending a friendship after being diagnosed with cancer. Hey there. I'm gonna keep my name anonymous, 26, but I'm a little lost as to how to feel about this whole situation. You're in for a bit of a ride, 'cause this has baffled me for months to this day. Here's some context as to how this all started. When I met my now ex-friend, well, call her Katie, 28, after a breakup with my now ex, we'll call him Adam, 22. I was working for a ski resort at the time that I met Katie. She started working for the same resort and moved into the employee housing for the mountain. There were about 16 of us in this building. Katie moved in while Adam and I were still together. After about 3 months, Adam and I went out separate ways. And Katie and I got a lot closer. We started hanging out a lot, and there was even some harmless flirting. I had a crush on Katie, and she knew this at the time. Adam and I tried to maintain a friendship after our breakup, so I introduced him to Katie, as I thought she was a super rad and mature person. Little did I know, after the breakup with Adam, Katie and I would spend hours together, drinking wine, watching movies, smoking, snowboarding, etc. My mental health was not great at this time, and Katie was always willing to listen to me vent. A lot of the venting was about Adam. Our relationship was fairly toxic. I admitted to my wrongs in the relationship, but Adam never took accountability for how he treated me. I had fairly strong feelings for Adam even after the breakup, and would sit with Katie and cry about it for hours. Later on down the line, I started to notice Katie and Adam hanging out in a more than friends way, and I picked up on it. I pulled both of them aside respectfully and said, "Hey, if you two have a thing for each other, I totally respect it and don't want to intrude, so just communicate with me." It was all about communication to me. I didn't want to know the personal details of any of their interactions, but if they were going to start dating or actively going around housing acting like a couple, I was going to keep my distance. As one, I did not want to get hurt by seeing them together, and two, I did not want to maintain a friendship with someone who heard about how Adam hurt me and abused me, let alone my feelings for him, and was so effortlessly willing to try and hook up with them. Both Adam and Katie told me there was no interest for each other, and we left it at that. I eventually found out that they were sleeping together. Katie and I had grown such a strong bond, at least that I thought so. I went about things the mature way and maintained a friendship with Katie. A few months pass and I get diagnosed with ovarian cancer for the second time in a time span of 2 years. The first time, I had to do intense chemotherapy and have my fallopian tubes removed. It was fairly bad and it made my life hell. Before we found out just how far along the cancer was, I sat down with Katie and broke down. For context, I have been sick my whole life with autoimmune issues, and chemo from the first time kicked my absolute ass. I have suffered physically and struggled mentally almost my whole life. I sat down with Katie and expressed to her that depending on how far along the cancer was, that I wasn't going to fight it. There was so much in life that I still wanted to do and would not be able to accomplish if I was on chemotherapy again, let alone just to fight something I was going to lose against anyways. I had been in a severe snowboarding accident almost a year prior, and it should have killed me. I broke 12 different places in my body and moved to a new state that is beautiful. But being in this new state, I couldn't do anything. I'm a huge outdoors person and was in a sling on anti-seizure meds and a cocktail of pain meds and muscle relaxers, and couldn't see out of my right eye. Once I was out of the sling and cleared to do physical activities, I instantly hopped on the opportunity to snowboard and be outside again anyways. When I sat down with Katie, I expressed that there were all of these things I wanted to do in the new state before dying. If that was going to be the case, doing chemotherapy doesn't save you. It increases your chances of surviving longer, but not saving you depending on how far along and what type of cancer you have. Then I saw no point in fighting something and being sick all the time, trying to fight something that was going to kill me, whether it was 6 months or 2 years down the line. I told Katie that if I was far along, that I would be taking all of the money I saved and camping in my car while traveling across the states to national parks, lakes, ski resorts, etc. That is how I'd want to spend my last days in nature, waiting to become a part of it again. It made Katie emotional that the events in my life had caused me to feel like not fighting. But that's where she was wrong. I made it very clear to her that I wasn't suicidal. Someone who is making the decision not to fight a battle that won't be won isn't suicidal. It's the person making the best decision for our mental health in their last days. I told Katie this over and over again, but she insisted I was suicidal. I was at this time, but not to the extent of actually carrying out an act. And that wasn't why I had come to this decision. The next day, Katie sent me a text telling me that she was hurt by my decision not to fight my cancer. She said she felt it was selfish and inconsiderate of me to not consider how my decision would make other people feel. After receiving this text, I took some time to think about our friendship and decided to call it off completely. I had overlooked her sleeping with my ex and lying about it. I'd even go out and get her things on days she was struggling with her mental health. I validated her feelings and expressed that I would be taking a step back from our friendship. AITA for ending the friendship. I personally feel like telling someone that making an extreme life decision about our life, when it comes to a terminal illness, is selfish in itself. How can you think about how you feel about this person's decision, when they are the ones who have to live with it and make the decisions for the end of their life? My whole thing is, if I'm going to be sick with something that is going to kill me no matter what I do, I'm not going to spend my last days hooked up to a machine being pumped full of chemicals and so sick that I can't function because of those chemicals. I'm going to spend my last days doing the things I love, doing things I haven't had the opportunity to do in my life, etc. Stories number 4. How do I mend my relationship with my narcissistic father after he turned my family against me over my engagement? So sorry in advance for the long post. I too for am struggling deeply with my relationship with my father 57M, who has always been controlling and narcissistic. I've spent my entire life trying to prove that I'm good enough, constantly bending to his will and doing everything to make him proud. But now I feel like I'm at my breaking point, and I just don't know what to do anymore. Growing up, my mom was a bipolar alcoholic who lost custody of me and my sister to OF when I was 5. My dad raised us as a single parent, and his second marriage ended in a bitter divorce. He's been burned by women in his life, and it feels like he sees me as just another woman we can't control or trust. I've been with my fiancée 25M for nearly 4 years, and we've been engaged for 1. We're both educated. I'm in law school part-time, working full-time in a law firm, and I'm set to graduate next May. He has a great job in sales. We're financially stable, earning well over the median household income, and we've built a healthy, loving relationship. There's no financial, emotional, or physical abuse between us, and I genuinely can't understand why my dad disapproves of our relationship other than the fact that he can't control it. From the beginning of our relationship, I made numerous attempts to introduce T to my family, knowing that he was the person I wanted to marry. But every time my dad would dismiss him, saying it wasn't the right time or that T wasn't invited to family events. After a year and a half of dating, T finally met my dad, and he was completely ignored, unwelcome, and disrespected. That was the one and only time they met. When T decided to propose, I asked him to reach out to my dad, not because I needed his permission, but because I wanted to make one last effort for the sake of peace. T tried reaching out multiple times through calls and texts over 2 months, but my dad ignored him, except for one brief message saying he wasn't available. T even called my entire family the week before proposing to let them know about his plans, and everyone seemed happy and supportive. But when the day came, only 4 out of 11 family members showed up. My sister told T they were out of town and told me that T hadn't tried hard enough to get my dad's blessing. I found out later that my dad had spread lies to the rest of my family, saying T never reached out, that he was disrespectful for not following tradition, and that he was insulting our family. They've also condemned our relationship because we've been living together for the past 2 years, despite both of us being Christian and wanting to live together before marriage to strengthen our bond. The day after our engagement, I called my sister and she yelled at me, blaming me for everything, how inconvenient it was that T proposed the week of Thanksgiving, as that was reserved for family time, and how I am selfish and inconsiderate. She pulled an entire 180 on me, which prompted me to take her out of the wedding party, which she was so excited about. When we would talk about me getting married, she really thought she would be my maid of honor. I've spent my whole life trying to please my dad, always doing what he wants, and putting my own happiness aside just to avoid his disapproval. Now I'm exhausted and heartbroken. My father's actions have pushed my sister and grandparents away from me, and I feel like I've lost my entire family. I'm tired of begging my family to be part of my life and wedding when my dad has turned everyone against me. I'm at a point where I don't even want to ask my dad to walk me down the aisle because it feels like he doesn't deserve that moment when he doesn't support my happiness. I also am at a loss for how to go about inviting people to my wedding. Do I save the dates and invitations to everyone to be the bigger person and prevent further conflict over not being invited? The few family members who do support us have tried talking to my family, but my dad seems to control the entire narrative, and no one seems to believe my side of the story. It's like my dad has brainwashed everyone. I love my dad and deep down I know he loves me too. But his need for control has severely poisoned our relationship. I want to mend things with him, but I am scared it will always be one-sided with me constantly bending to make him happy. I also do not want our relationship to negatively impact my marriage. With T constantly feeling unwelcome and that he is not good enough, he does not deserve that at all. I constantly remind him that this is not his fault, and that this is rooted in a deeper issue and insecurity within my dad. I feel stuck between wanting to hold on to my family and the painful realization that I can't keep sacrificing my peace and happiness to please him. In desperate for advice, how do I communicate with my narcissistic father to try and mend our relationship? How do I navigate these painful family dynamics when it feels like I'm constantly the one losing? I don't want to have regrets about shutting people out, but I also don't want to keep hurting myself trying to make this work. Any advice would be greatly appreciated because I feel lost and completely drained. Stories number 5. I just want my husband to quit his job and stay home. Our son was born premature and up until now needed special care with feedings. He was cleared by his pediatrician that he's no longer high risk, meaning we can seek traditional child care. I'm interviewing nannies now. I stayed home for the first 4 months with him. My work was super supportive and even approved to additional months. That's when I had a breakdown. I love my job and worked really hard to grow my company. When my husband found me in tears, he asked his work for a period of leave so I could go back. It just seems like he's built for this. I get photos all day of him playing and going on adventures with my son. He loves cooking, which means I come home to incredible healthy meals and a lunch packed for the next day. The house is always spotless and our baby is super happy. I feel like I've been a better mom and wife because I come home completely refreshed and ready for family time. I feel guilty because I was very unhappy as a SAHP. I absolutely adore my son and being a mother is the best thing in the world. But I'm happier when it's not the only thing in my world. For the record, I never miss the chance to thank my husband and insist he goes on a run each morning and socializes at least once a week. When I'm home, baby and home chores are split 50-50ths. I say this because after taking on the burden running the house for the short time I will never take all the things he does for granted. Kudos to all homemakers, that shit is hard. My husband joked the other day that he finally got his dream job of being a stay-at-home dad for a few months. I laughed it off at the time, but now I keep fantasizing about it. We're both professionally successful, but I make about $1,000 more. Living without his salary would be a hit, but would also save on childcare. Plus, our quality of life would be so much better with one parent at home. I know it's harder for everyone to break back into the workforce, but statistically it'd be easier for him based on his field and frankly his gender. I've always seen every cent either of us makes as our money anyway, and I feel I make enough. So I guess this is a rant and wishful thinking, but I'm seriously considering just bringing this up to him. I don't want to undermine his professional life and how many incredible things he's done for our family with his work, but God, I hope he's itching for this to be a more permanent solution. I can't decide if this is a fantasy or if I'm just afraid to hope for the best. Stories number 6. Help me out here. My boyfriend's daughter 22 claims her boyfriend 22 has enough money in the bank to buy a house in full. Advice needed. We were at dinner and this topic came up. I wanted to clarify, so I asked her, does he have enough money to buy a house in full? Or does he have enough money to make a down payment? She said that she doesn't know, but that he told her that they would live very comfortably after buying a home. She then joked about becoming a stay-at-home wife, which I'm sure was not a joke. This boy was in the military and claims to have saved all of his earnings. I want to say he was in the military for 3 years. Does one really earn that much while in the military? We live in California and he wants to buy a home in either San Diego or Ontario. And apparently the houses that he shows her are really big homes, but yet he currently lives at home with his mom where he doesn't even have his own bedroom. My boyfriend and I both think that there is definitely some discrepancies and what she's telling us, but I'm genuinely curious if that is even possible. Update: from what we know, there has not been any major inheritances and he is not a trust fund baby. He was deployed months in an area of combat, but that is all we know. To the people making major assumptions, please relax and take it down a notch. I'm in no way trying to replace her mom or make any of her business my business. I do, however, care very much for her and her well-being. Her father and I are both very alert and we pay a lot of attention to her dating life, but never in an invasive, unhealthy way. We are always very happy when she chooses to share things with us, and we both try our very best to guide her in the right direction when she asks for our input. It's outrageous that a number of people on here are assuming otherwise. Cool it on the shitty assumptions that are being passed down, because it's not okay, especially, and I've written in my post that I'm literally curious if making that type of money in the military is common or known of. Thank you. Stories number 7. After 17 years, my late dad's brother wants to reconnect with me. I don't know what to do. Advice needed. When I was 3, my dad passed from a sudden heart attack. From my understanding, my dad's side of the family never really loved my mom. Though when my dad passed, tensions only got higher. They wouldn't give my mom many pictures of my dad or any of his collections. He had a large Hot Wheels collection when he passed, and my mom even had to get a restraining order against my paternal grandma at one point. My paternal grandma and my dad's two brothers had made it clear that they didn't want anything to do with my mom, me, or my younger brother 17M at the time. Recently, one of my dad's brothers had also passed from a heart attack, so there is only one brother left. Here is where my problem comes. My mom was contacted by a mutual friend of my dad's last brother. He told my mom that my uncle would be interested in talking to me and getting to know me if I wanted to. I feel hesitant to reach out because of how my mom was treated after my dad passed. He does have my mom's contact info, but refuses to talk to her and will only contact me. My mom left it up to me to decide if I want to reach out to them, but she did say she wants me to at least have a relationship with my dad's family. He has never made any effort to reach out to me or my brother in the 17 years since my dad's passing, and this makes me feel hesitant to reach out. Would you reach out and try to form a connection, or would you continue to live your separate lives? I just need some input from others. T.S. I am sorry for any grammatical errors. Stories number 8. AITA. If I go NC with parents who treat me only as a vessel that birthed the woe they wanted and who weren't fun to grow up with. Advice needed. I too 9F have always had a poor relationship with my parents. Growing up, they were mentally and emotionally rough on us. Broken promises, both big and small, borrowing money to never be returned starting as early 10 years old, and yelling at us and each other were some of the highlights. At 16, they had been arguing for a week straight. I had to be out the door at 5 a.m. one day during this to go out of town for a school activity, and at 5 a.m. they were going at it and screaming at each other. I had had enough and said, "Why don't you two just get a freaking divorce already?" before I stormed out the door. When I got home, they never talked to me about it, so I didn't say more. In college, I had issues with the financial aid office one year, and my parents helped me get a small loan at our bank to pay school, which I would pay back within 2 weeks. After the office processed my FAFSA and paid me back the difference, loan was paid back by me, and this difference ended up being $3,000 for me to pocket or give back to the loan provider and not pay interest on later. My parents asked for half of it. They said they'd pay me back, and I gave it to them, believing maybe they would this time, but never saw a dime of it. Fast forward to me marrying my husband. My parents were overjoyed for the son they never had, as they had all daughters. My sisters are both gay and will not have children. So when I had my child, a son, a few years ago, they finally got their boy that's blood. When they introduced me and my little family at gatherings from my side of the family and not my husband's side, it's always, "This is our son-in-law Adam, our grandson Cain, and this is Cain's mom Eve." Not, "This is our daughter Eve and her family Adam and Cain." All I am to them is someone who slept with a man and grew a tool in my inner parts for 9 months. They are 90% of the reason that I had postpartum depression, anxiety with how dismissive of me they were, fixating oh baby and my husband and not even bothering with me rather than play peekaboo. They just want to take pictures and pretend that they're the best grandparents on the planet on social media. I do have to add that I am not without fault in this, as I have never done anything to nurture a relationship, nor have I had a direct conversation with them about how I have felt about their behavior and treatment over the years. Because how do you say you made my childhood so miserable that I tried to remove myself from the equation permanently to get away from you? Not an easy way to start a conversation with, or without therapy. We nearly had a breakthrough last year that would have allowed the door to open for me to say something. We were talking about a family member cutting contact with everyone in the family, and my parents say, I know we didn't give you guys the best childhood, but yeah. They had me in the first half and I thought things were going to be acknowledged, that they maybe knew they messed up and we could slowly work towards something. That they didn't take the accountability, they just completely dropped the ball. How can I put effort into people who won't put the effort in themselves or into me? We haven't seen them for a few months and it's kind of been the best both for my health and my marriage. With the holidays right around the corner, we've been contemplating just keeping that going and doing extremely low contact or completely cutting the cord and going no contact. My husband always defends me and supports me with them. He wanted to hold on to give them a chance for our child to have a relationship with them, but he's even at the end of his rope. I understand that we're keeping our child from a set of grandparents and are prepared for his questions later, but what is he really missing from people who treat him like a trophy? Having never told them any of this, AITA if I go and see with them because they've never changed and don't seem to think they've ever done anything wrong. Stories number 9. Do I tell my new friend I used to hook up with her crush? Advice needed. So I recently started hanging out with a new group of people. I have made a few new friends. One girl and I have gotten close in particular. We were talking about how she has a crush on someone who around the group, and I was not expecting who she said. I was like shit and said, oh damn, not who I thought you were going to say. I didn't know what to say, so I just have been supportive of her. I was like, it makes sense, he's hot but she's got it betted. To be clear, I am still friends with him, but I rarely talk to him, as it was never that close of a relationship, it was just hookups on the DL. I also fully want her to get what she wants and him. If he wants it, he's a single grown man. To make it worse, I kinda have a thing for her. We are both non-monogamous, so my question, do I tell her? I feel bad for not telling her, but I also don't want to make her feel bad or lose her friendship. How do I get myself in these situations? Stories number 10. Sister and her husband are in severe debt, and I need advice on what I should do. My 2 for F sister 31F and her husband 30 for meters are in financial crisis, and I'm not sure what to do. I want to help them, but other friends and family advise me not to. For context, my sister, her husband, and I have been incredibly close. They've been together since I was 13. When I was in college, they took me on vacations to Tennessee, Disney World, Key West, etc. And they paid for my stay activities and my meals. When I graduated, I moved into an apartment and had no money. They took me to IKEA and bought me a couch, entertainment center, and a coffee table. Everything was about $1,000 and they paid for it. They were there for me at my lowest and I am eternally grateful. I am a nurse and I make pretty good money. I'm able to pay my bills and save about $1,000 of my money every month. So over the 2 years I've been working, I had a decent amount saved. I also just got a new job, and I got a $5 raise and a $20,000 sign-on bonus. I don't plan on having kids anytime soon, and in the next year or so I want to get an RV to become a travel nurse so I can make more money to buy a house. So at the end of the day I have the money to give. Here's the catch: my sister and her husband got themselves into this situation because of their frivolous spending. They go on vacation when it probably isn't the best idea, they order Uber Eats every day, and buy things on Amazon without a second thought. Last Christmas they had no money, yet they spent probably around $2,000 on gifts. Things have gotten bad over the past year or so, and they had to consolidate their debt. My mom has been urging me to give money to help them, and I want to. But I am hesitant due to their spending habits. I don't want to give them money if they aren't going to use it to pay off their debt. My boyfriend and his dad told me not to, cause giving family money can cause tensions. I want to help them though because they helped me and I was broke and needed it. What should he do? Edit. I forgot to mention he makes around $100,000 a year and she makes $18,000 a year. She is in nursing school but works part-time. They have a daughter and they live at my mom's house and pay my mom $1,200 in rent added to. My mom is waiving my sister's rent until they can get back on their feet. And she is also paying for my sister's tuition. Tomorrow me, my mom, and my sister are gonna have a conversation about their financial situation and what they can do moving forward. In not going to give them money, 99% of commenters mentioned thank you all for the replies. I will offer to pay for a financial counselor if they are amenable to it. I'll keep you all updated. Stories number 11. AITA forgoing no contact with my mom because she hates that I'm engaged to someone of a different race. I 31 am a black man. I am engaged to a white woman 30F who we will call Savannah. Savannah is everything I could ever want in a partner. She is kind, funny, ambitious, hardworking, supportive, the list goes on. She's also absolutely beautiful. In my eyes she is perfect and I am so in love with her. Back when we first started dating, my mom told me she didn't like the fact that I was dating a white girl, and would say things to me like, "Oh, you think those little white girls are so much better, don't you?" I never understood those comments because I have never had a race preference. And Savannah is the only white woman I have ever been with. I would try to ask my mom to just give her a chance and see that she is a great person, but my mom has never given her a chance and has always been pretty rude to her. Even when Savannah has tried so hard to get to know my mom and form a relationship with her. My dad, all three of my sisters, and my grandma all love her and have a great relationship with her. They have all tried numerous times to talk to my mom and tell her that Savannah is a good person, and to give her a chance, but my mom won't budge. Well, I recently asked Savannah to marry me, so now we are engaged. While the rest of my family is excited, my mom is furious. She texted me an hour after I proposed to tell me that she will not be coming to the wedding because she won't accept a white girl as her daughter-in-law. This was the breaking point for me. I called my mom the next day and told her that I have spent years watching Savannah try so hard to get to know her and build a relationship with her, only to be shot down every single time. I've comforted Savannah while she's cried over it. I've watched Savannah be nothing but respectful, only to be met with disrespect in return by my mother. I explained all of this and then told my mom that I can no longer have her in my life. My mom hung up on me and then sent me a very rude text, telling me to enjoy my life with that little white girl. The next day my mom sent me another text saying how I am a terrible person for choosing Savannah over her. Stories number 12. I dumped my short boyfriend because of his insecurities. I 27F57 just broke up with my boyfriend 42 and am feeling conflicted. But honestly, it was just getting to be too much. I always loved his height, I thought it was cute. I'm not into tall guys, I actually liked that he was shorter and I made that clear from the start. He made me realize that I'm actually into shorter people. I never cared for height before, but some of the guys I've dated were pretty tall. However, his insecurity about being 50 slowly destroyed our relationship. In the beginning he'd make little jokes about being shorter and I didn't think much of it. But everything got worse after he found out my ex was 65. It was like that single fact shattered his confidence completely. He became obsessed with the idea that I was comparing him to my ex no matter how much I told him I was with him because I liked him. He couldn't let it go. It started small. He'd ask things like, "Are you sure you're really okay with me being this short?" I'd always reassure him, but soon it became nonstop. Anytime we went out and a tall guy walked by, he'd get all tense and quiet. One time we were out for dinner and a tall couple walked past our table and he just lost it. He slammed his drink down, muttering, "I know you're thinking about how much better it would be with someone like that." I was stunned, trying to calm him down, but he just got more worked up. He started crying right there in the restaurant, saying, "You'll never love me the way you loved him, will you? How could I ever be enough for you when I'm like this?" I felt so embarrassed but also heartbroken for him, because no matter what I said, it never seemed to get through. It didn't stop there. Every time I wore heels, he'd accuse me of doing it to rub it in. One night we went to a party and I wore a simple pair of heels, and he barely said 2 words to me. Later, as we were leaving, he burst into tears in the car, sobbing, "You're just trying to make me feel small, aren't you? You want me to feel pathetic." I was in shock, trying to reassure him that I loved his height, that it was never about that. But he just kept crying, saying, "Why are you even with me? Is it pity?" Things hit a breaking point last week when we ran into my ex at a mutual friend's event. I hadn't seen my ex in years and it was just a brief "Hey, have you been?" kind of interaction, but my boyfriend was fuming. The second we got in the car, he started screaming at me, saying, "I saw the way you looked at him. Admit it, you'd leave me for him in a heartbeat, wouldn't you? You probably still want him." I tried to calm him down, but he just started crying again. saying how could I ever compete with someone like him? I'm a joke to you, aren't I? A pathetic short joke. He accused me of cheating, telling me I probably had some secret affair with my ex going on this whole time. And then he brought up the idea of getting leg lengthening surgery, something had been talking about more and more lately. He was convinced that this was the only way he could fix things between us. He said if he could just be tolerant, I'd stop comparing him to my ex and everything would be better. This broke my heart because I never cared about his height, but his obsession with it was ruining us. I just couldn't handle it anymore. I told him we were done, that I couldn't deal with the constant jealousy and accusations. Now he's texting me saying I proved him right by leaving and that I'm probably already with some tall guy. He's been sending me long messages about how I ruined his life and how he always knew I'd leave him for someone taller. Some of my friends think I should have been more understanding, that he was just insecure and I should have helped him through it, but I was constantly trying to reassure him and nothing worked. I want to get back together. He was a great guy outside of these issues and I love him more than anything. But I don't know if I can handle him being so insecure. Maybe there's a way to help him. I don't know what to do and I need advice badly. Stories number 13. AITA for asking my BF not to go to a wedding with his ex-GF. For context, me and my boyfriend Sam have been together for a year and a half. We broke up last summer for 2 months, but got back together. During our break, Sam met up with his ex-girlfriend Rachel, whom he had dated for 4 years prior to our relationship. They only met up once and nothing came of it. However, Rachel still has feelings for Sam and was hoping they would rekindle things. Rachel was enraged and threw a fit whenever she found out that me and Sam got back together. She sent him a lot of really nasty messages and continued to do so for several months afterward, even though he never responded to her. Rachel and Sam both have mutual friends who are getting married. They were both asked to be bridesmaids and groomsmen in the wedding. In February, Rachel asked the bride if it would be okay if Sam did not have a +1 for the wedding, because she wouldn't be able to handle seeing him with anyone else. Whenever Sam found this out, he immediately contacted both the bride and groom. They assured him that Rachel's request would not have an impact on the decision for a +1. Since then, she has still continued to try to reach out to Sam, including going as far as contacting me via Instagram regarding the upcoming wedding. She started to harass me and even admitted that contacting me was for her own self-gain. In April, me and Sam were both invited to the engagement party. Of course, Rachel was there. We were having such a great time that we barely even noticed her existence. At 3 a.m. that night, Rachel texted Sam yet again, degrading both of us. She told Sam that he was not going to be getting a +1 to the wedding, and to not make a fuss about it like last time. I found the comment odd because invitations have not been sent out yet. Why is she the one telling him this instead of the bride or groom? Regardless, Sam finally responded to Rachel and told her to never contact us again. Fast forward to the present day, Sam got the wedding invitation, and it did not include a +1. He contacted the groom, and the response was that they had to prioritize other couples who have been together longer, live together, and or who both know the bride and groom. Due to the budget, I know 100% that a wedding should only be about the bride and groom and what they want. If they don't want Sam to have a +1, that is their call. I'm not entirely convinced that Rachel did not have a part in the decision. She is a lot closer to the bride than Sam is to the groom. So AITA for asking my boyfriend not to go to the wedding without me. This would mean he would have to drop out of being a groomsman. The only reason I feel uncomfortable with him going is due to the relentless harassment about the wedding by Rachel. If she had been respectful and left us alone, I would have no problem with him going without me. However, that was not the case. She has continuously disrespected me, my boyfriend, and our relationship. She has no clue what a boundary is. I just want this to be over. Update. My boyfriend talked to the groom. Due to the budget, they had to limit +1s. 2 couples who live together or will be traveling out of town to attend the wedding is being paid for by the bride's family. It seems like they had an input on who was invited. The groom did not know the full extent of Rachel's behavior towards me and my boyfriend. The groom was also surprised to hear Rachel told my BF in April he would not be getting a +1, as they had not decided at that time. My BF did come to see that it was disrespectful for the bride and groom to not allow him to have a +1 even if his ex was not attending the wedding party. Should have priority over regular guest. With that being said, he does not want to completely burn a bridge with the groom, which I don't want that too. happened neither. We both agreed it will be fine for him to attend the ceremony but skip the reception. The groom said I would be allowed to attend the rehearsal dinner and welcome party. As far as Rachel, my BF, plans to ignore her and immediately shut down any of her antics. IBF is truly disgusted with Rachel and her psychotic behavior. Ultimately, she wanted to break things up between me and my BF, but she has only made us stronger. Update. Backstory. My boyfriend was asked to be a groomsman in a wedding where his ex-girlfriend was a bridesmaid. His ex harassed him for months even though he didn't respond. She reached out to me via Instagram. She has been trying to break us up, get him back. She told me on Instagram that she doesn't want to be around us during the wedding as it would be distracting. The groom told my boyfriend months ago that I would be allowed to attend the rehearsal dinner welcome party and part of the reception. We were told I would not be allowed to attend the ceremony or dinner portion of the reception due to the budget. After the formalities are completed, I will be allowed to attend. A week before the wedding, the groom invited my boyfriend to brunch on Sunday, the day after the wedding. He said it was going to be a super casual thing. I, however, was not invited to this brunch. My boyfriend reassured me he would not be attending without me. During the wedding rehearsal, my boyfriend decided to double-check with the groom about me coming to the rehearsal dinner. Turns out I had been uninvited from the dinner. We were informed of this 30 minutes before the start. The groom told my boyfriend I did not have a seat, but he would love to have me at the welcome party afterward. My boyfriend skipped the rehearsal dinner. We ended up going to a local bar until the welcome party started. Once we got to the welcome party, the groom came up to me and apologized for the politics. He told me he was happy I was there and looked forward to having me at the reception tomorrow. People commented on us missing the rehearsal dinner, but I just changed the subject. After the welcome party ended, we all rallied to a bar close by. I was standing at the bar talking to one of the guests when the bride inputted herself into our conversation. The bride would only look at and talk to the other girl even though I was adding input into the conversation. It was just like the interview Kirsty Flott did with Blake Lively. I felt so uncomfortable that I ended up walking away. The next day before the wedding, I met up for brunch with the girl. She informed me that as soon as I walked away, the bride started talking shit about me. The bride told her I was originally invited to the wedding, but that Rachel, my boyfriend's ex, said she would not be able to handle it, so I was uninvited from the wedding. The girl said it seemed like the bride was trying to get her to not be friends with me and to exclude me. She said it seemed like the bride was trying to get her to take Rachel's side as well. The bride admitted she was being petty but that she didn't care. Mind you, I had just met this girl and we were just casually chatting at the bar. Why the bride wanted to focus on causing drama and excluding me the night before her wedding is beyond me. Like, girl, focus on getting married. Around 8 p.m. is when all the formalities were finished and I was able to attend. In not going to lie, dancing with my boyfriend in front of his ex-girlfriend felt extremely good. I swear we did not do it on purpose, but whenever his ex, and we were always right there. She could not avoid us even if she tried. At one point the bride and groom were in the center dancing. I was directly across from his ex in her line of sight. She completely turned her back just so that she couldn't see me, even though everyone else was facing forward. The only people who would talk to us were the other groomsmen and their dates. We ended up telling several of them the full story because they had no idea. So the whole night felt like sweet revenge. Honestly, I will say many times the groom came up to me and said he was happy I was there. Whether he meant it or it was performative, I have no idea. I also don't care at this point. The only reason my boyfriend did not drop out of the wedding was because we were told I was not invited due to the budget. We were assured several times that it had nothing to do with his ex. If my boyfriend had been given the full truth, he would have dropped out. Whenever I found out the truth, it was already too late. My boyfriend was at the venue taking pictures and the wedding was starting in an hour. Once the couple gets back from their honeymoon, I and my boyfriend plan on having a conversation with the groom. My boyfriend said he will be reevaluating their friendship. Stories number 14. Forgiving doesn't fix anything. Tried to post an unpopular opinion, but was removed for going against their very long list of no topics. Not totally sure if this is an unpopular opinion, but seen too many stories where people are asked to forgive someone that doesn't. I have lucky not been in a situation where I have been abused or anything harmful or know anyone. The idea that someone should forgive the people that has abused or *escaped serious harmed or wronged them makes no sense to me. People say it's for the person that's been done wrong, but how? How does forgiving that person change what they did to you? Forgiving them doesn't make it magically go away or change the outcome. This concept makes no sense. Like someone is just supposed to forget what they've been through. Little things like spilling a drink or dropping a hot plate, sure, but abuse or violence isn't an accident. You don't just accidentally abuse someone. I heard people say forgiving them is for yourself and not them, but I can't seem to wrap my head around how is forgiving someone that did you wrong for you. What are the benefits? How does it help you move on? Stories number 15. Am I the asshole for breaking up a 10-year friendship over an apartment? Hi Morgan, Justin, Jeremy, female 20 for best friend, also female 24. So to start the story, me and such friend have been friends since we were kids, 7th grade, and since we were kids we have always spoken about moving in together eventually. We knew we would be fine as we would spend all of our summers together all the time without issue. Fast forward to a couple months ago, my lease and hers were ending at the same time, therefore we were looking for a little place we could possibly both enjoy together. We were both going into the working field and thought since everything added up it would be perfect. We found a 3-bedroom townhouse that was very private and spacious. And might I say, it was beautiful for an apartment for 2 young women just starting off. Little did I know she had intentions on bringing in her cousin, which is where the problem lies. What started as would you mind if my cousin moves in as well, help us save rent? And well, be 3 girls, then it was, oh, she also wants the second biggest room. You guys will have to talk it out to yet. She has a dog and lots books. After fighting with her back and forth, I tried to explain to her that in every single instance in our lives she's always ditched me for family, either her brother's hockey games or her sister's rugby or her grandma was over, and she couldn't, even though she made commitments to plans we had bought tickets to or planned to the last second. She was always alright with ditching me, and that I for once would like to be the one to get my choice, as it was our place first, only to be told I was unreasonable and our characters probably just don't match, and we shouldn't live together if we want to keep being friends. So I cut it off. So am I the asshole for putting myself first and finally stopping a friendship that basically seemed one-sided? Extra info: my friend got the biggest room, which was 2 rooms destroyed to make 1 big room, and it is right in front of a bathroom, and she had health issues that required the easy access, which is totally fine, but the other 2 rooms were of too much different sizes. Stories number 16. My future ex-roommate. This is a long one, sorry in advance. Okay, I am going to start at the beginning. AITA 5F met Holly, name change for story to 2F in 2022. We went to school together and were loosely friends, think only friends in class, until I decided that graduate program was for me and left December 2022. At the time, I was also in an abusive relationship of 3, which I finally got the courage to do with support from family and my best friend, finally leaving him in February 2023. My grad school friends all found out we went out and I shared what had happened, etc. Note: Holly was not there because we were not close. A month later I get a text from Holly saying our mutual friend Sarah, name also changed, suggested we swap breakup stories because she just left her partner. Holly and I hung out, and then after that got incredibly close, seeing each other all the time. Every now and then she would mention how she has lost tons of friends and she never understood how her roommate was so messy, etc. And I never thought anything of it, just listened and supported her. Then in February 2024 she asked me to move in May 2024 due to her current roommate leaving. We set up a roommate agreement so we could maintain our friendship, did all of the right things. Slowly we started seeing each other less because summer trips, and I was still in class working full-time and interning. I am currently in an online grad program doing night classes, while I work full-time, intern 25 hours and do class work. In total, I am doing 80 to 90 hours of work a week. I am usually in class most weeknights until 11 p.m. then have 2 hours of homework. This summer she did not work or have school, so she only traveled and hung out at home. About 3 months ago, we both came home from trips at the same time, me getting home at 6:30 p.m. and her at 8:30. She had texted me just to let me know she would be home late, which in the past this has meant around 1 a.m. I ran laundry immediately at 6:30, first towels, moved them to the dryer, then clothes. Important to note that our dryer has been broken the entire time I lived here. Either not drying unless you run it 2 to 3 times, or burning our things and maintenance ass. Completed 6 work orders and it still doesn't work. At around 8:15, I take a break from class to check on my towels and grab dinner only to find my wet towels on the ground. My clothes have been moved to the dryer and she is running laundry. Mind you, our washer takes about an hour and a half to run. So the towels have only been in the dryer for about 30 minutes and my clothes were still mid-wash. I go ask what happened thinking maybe there was an emergency and she slammed the door on me. Confused, I went back to class but kept thinking about it. A few other things that are important to note before I get to where shit hit the fan. I have 2 cats that she has been weird about despite loving them before I moved in. She's hung out with them several times and asked me to bring them with me. There was also one instance where she found what she thought was pee on a bag. We determined it was not, and I know for a fact that my cats only used the litter box. My cats were also terrified of her. The litter box was in my bedroom closet, since after moving in she forbid me from putting it anywhere else. Even my bedroom was too close to the living area, so it had to go in my closet. I had also been doing her dishes and taking out the trash every week because she wouldn't. Since I moved in, multiple witnesses including mutual friends, my partner, my family, etc. I also only did my laundry on Sundays every other week and would stay up with it because I normally go to sleep around 1 a.m. and she sleeps at 8 p.m. This slamming scenario was an odd Monday wash, since I had just gotten home from being out of town. Also, I texted her every 2 to 3 weeks to check in as a roommate, friend, and make sure we were okay, especially since we kept missing each other through the summer with her traveling a ton and me putting in 80 hours a week every week. She said she was happy and was so glad I moved in. So here is the shit that went down. I asked her to go to dinner so we could talk about the towels. She said she would love to set a time day if she canceled, so I texted her about all of my concerns because I was extremely worried I had done something and wanted to make sure we were okay. The next morning my car was broken into. Long separate stories, so I also texted her to let her know it came from a place of love and care for her and our friendship, and was immediately turned around on me, and her response was, "So long, you had to open it elsewhere." She blamed me for things I didn't do, think leaving the dishes in the sink, started name calling, etc. Since my message wasn't intended to be an argument, I apologized and said I would work on those things, and I thought that would be the end of the conversation, and she and I would be able to chat about it a little more in person if needed. We tried to meet up several times, between last-minute emergencies, car getting broken into and needing repairs, as well as pre-established plans, took a couple of weeks. She canceled on most of the nights, had a friend spend the night, was going to her parents randomly, etc. So I took time out of my way to meet with her in person that I didn't have because it was important to me, but only had 30 minutes before I had an appointment. At this meetup she kept chewing me out, and any time I would apologize or explain how I felt she would change the why she was upset. It went in circles for 30 minutes, then I had to leave, and she screamed at me for having my appointment and that it was a cop-out. Since then it has just spiraled and nothing I have said or done was enough for her. She would say one thing was the problem, we would talk about it, then that wouldn't be the problem. Happened over and over. Even when we talked in person, we agreed to have her partner take over my lease in a couple of months, and since she has thrown out all of my food in the fridge, moved all of my things out of the pantry, and told me I need to get all of my things out of the living room, I moved all of my plates and dishes out a few weekends ago. Weekend check to make sure she had everything she needed. Before doing so, had 3 pans and 2 pots, all of the other kitchen necessities like silverware and plates, as well as moved her kitchen trash can back into the kitchen when I took mine, so she didn't have to worry. I am unwelcome in the very apartment I am paying for, and it sucks. I even had to get a hotel for a couple of nights after her messages turned threatening. I am so extremely frustrated because I really valued our friendship and wanted to have a conversation, but instead was met with immediate defensiveness. And now she does not want me in her life. I have spoken with my therapist, shared my texts with her, and I know it is for the better, but I never imagined this happening. I have also had to block her on everything due to aggressive, threatening messages that put me in a bad mental space. Am I the asshole for how this was handled and having to block her? Stories number 17. AITA by being rude to salespeople. My policy with any salesperson is to say no thanks and ignore them. My reasoning is that I know what the answer is. Even if I was being eaten by bugs and an exterminator rang my doorbell, I would not employ them. I don't support companies that send doorbell ringers. Or who put trash in my mailbox? It's 110 degrees here in the fall. And those poor kids shouldn't be out doing this for peanuts. I know they are required to give their little spiel, but I'd just be wasting their time. Listening to it, I will hold up my hand and smile, give a simple yet firm no thanks, and go about my day. If they are still talking, I will 100% shut the door in their face. Whenever my fiancée sees me do this to salespeople, she says, I'm being rude and dismissive, especially when it's clear they're trained to ask questions that aren't yes or no. For example, "Hi sir, who's your cell phone provider?" "No thanks." I understand this looks a bit rude, but I'm sure they get 1,000 people ignoring them a day, so I try to be as brief and obviously uninterested as possible. I think it's fair and respectful, but my fiancée disagrees. I think she is biased since she's worked in customer-facing jobs her whole life. I do try to be very nice to retail employees, delivery drivers, phone support employees, etc. I leave good reviews and say please and thank you. I just don't think I'm doing anyone favors by being fake nice just to give them the same answer at the end of their pitch. Am I being rude, or is she being unfair? Stories number 18. Wanna be a good wingman? I need help. Hi guys, everyone in the story is 14. My name is Ella, my bestie's name is Jessica, and the guy's name is Matthew. Fake name, so I'll give some background. I am in a class which consists of 4 guys and me and my bestie. I am close with all boys including Matthew. BC he was in my class and nursery till middle school. After that I transfer and met Jessica. She is new as she came this year and is very shy, like won't talk to them at all, and I get it, they act pretty weird. But it was initially very weird for me because I had a ton of guy friends growing up, but now I get it. Anyway, she feels extremely weird to talk to Matthew. He's a nice guy and I do think they would go good together, but I want to help at least become friends with the guy, so any suggestions would be welcome. Thanks for reading. Stories number 19. Am I the asshole for ghosting my best friend? This happened a while ago, but it's been something I've ruminated on for the past 5 years after ghosting my best friend. My roommate and I, both 23 meters, lived together starting junior year of college and decided to move in together after graduation. We were inseparable in college, and he was a great person, then considerate to others, strong-willed and supportive of me. When we both moved into together in the real world, it was like a switch flipped. He began making connections with his wealthy clients at work and became a completely different person. Money-hungry, narcissistic, and womanizer became his top 3 personality traits. Some of his old self still shined through in the early days. When we first moved in after graduation, he offered to pay more of the rent since he got a high-paying job right off the bat until I could find more stable work, and he would often pick up the tab for me, bars, while I was still trying to make a living wage. Once things equaled out between us, things changed. He started treating me like shit. When we were around his rich clients, we would go out for drinks together, making fun of my income and saying I wasn't relevant because my job wasn't important. I also felt he would gaslight me into trying to do more than his share of housework to keep the apartment spiffy. Where things really got bad was during COVID lockdowns. He was in the camp of we should just keep living life, so he would go to bars and bring random groups of people home in the middle of the week. I asked him to be more considerate because I am immunocompromised family members. He didn't really care. The last straw was that he stopped paying rent for 3 months and came up with an elaborate story as to why he couldn't come up with the money. He said he hooked up with a transgender girl on accident and the girl stole his wallet while he was passed out drunk, but I couldn't tell anyone because it was too embarrassing. He said his bank froze his accounts at his direction and didn't have access to his money. After 2 months of this, I asked a friend who works in banking if that's how it would be handled, and he said no, they would open a new account for you in a week to make sure you have access to your money. We would never deny a customer their money for months while an investigation was happening. I confronted him finally and he completely flipped out, saying I had no clue what I was talking about and that I was insensitive to his situation. He was still ordering food nightly and going out to bars, so money couldn't have been that tight. I threw him under the bus to our landlord, and he miraculously came up with $3,000 in missed rent payments. Once our lease expired, I moved out to live with my girlfriend, and he moved to another place that his family member owned. We never saw each other when we were packing our things up to move out, and we never sat down to air our grievances. He hits me up from time to time still and I never respond. Part of me feels bad because we had a lot in common and we were like brothers through thick and thin. Sometimes I think maybe I didn't fight hard enough for our friendship. Or I wasn't vocal enough about what was annoying me about him. The other part of me recognizes there was some serious toxic shit happening in our friendship. Am I the asshole for not giving him another chance at friendship?